Here at Reimagining Love, we know that loving relationships are key for our health. Well, so is what we eat. And as someone who's been doing CrossFit and lifting heavy for well over a decade, I for sure know the importance of getting enough protein in your diet. So if you are struggling to get enough protein in your diet, I want to tell you about Kion Aminos. While you still for sure need whole food protein, Kion Aminos have all the essential amino acids, or EEAs, that you need to build muscle, healthy hair, skin, and nails. EEAs are what's inside protein, and Kion Aminos have more EEAs, are absorbed and utilized easier, and are better at building muscle than protein. What I think I love most about Kion is the personal story of CEO Angelo Keeley. He survived some pretty traumatic accidents when he was younger, accidents that sent him on a mission to create happy and healthy teams of humans. And that led him to Kion. And you can try Kion Aminos risk-free for 60 days with a money-back guarantee. Use my link to save 20% at getkion.com/OSLP. The discount code is OSLP. Hello and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. I know you listen to Reimagining Love, but how deeply are you listening in other areas of your life? We all have this tendency to listen just long enough to decide what we're going to say next and how we maybe possibly could shift the conversation to reflect a bit more of ourselves, our experiences, our hot takes, our needs. This monologue approach ends up being quite a hard habit to break. And my guests today are on a mission to transform conversation practices into true dialogue, to help us connect deeply every time with the real, live, flesh and blood person who matters so much, who is sitting right in front of us, to ensure that we really understand what they are saying, and to ensure that we are being understood in return. Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt and Dr. Harville Hendrix are couples therapists and educators and speakers who have been on my radar and in my heart and in my brain since I was literally a teenager, having seen their book on my mom's bedside table. They are truly wisdom keepers in our field and thought leaders who have transformed how we think about and how we do love. In their more than 40 years of practice, they have written over a dozen books and developed the Imago Relationship Therapy method, which is taught all over the world, including in my own courses at Northwestern University. Helen and Harville also created Safe Conversations, a program that teaches people how to engage in true dialogue that begets true connection and true validation without criticism or judgment. In today's episode, we're talking about their brand new book, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, The Practice of Safe Conversations, a book that meets this moment of polarization and strain with an optimism that we can bridge our differences. We talk about the physiological changes that happen in the brain when we listen and when we are listened to. And Dr. Helen and Dr. Harville share how and why their dialogue tactics work and why we need to banish negativity and facilitate conversations where we ask for what we want. Dr. Helen, Dr. Harville's methods help those in dialogue feel witnessed, seen in full, validated in their experiences. And their methods help conversation partners feel like their differences are embraceable rather than threatening. The outcome is an experience that validates both parties and that yields a much more creative and impactful solution than anyone could come up with all on their own. Together, we also address a listener question that comes in from Egypt, from someone who is preparing to relocate away from her home and away from her family for her husband's new job and wants advice on sharing her fears with her husband in a supportive and relational way. Get ready to question how you show up in your own conversations and get ready to consider how Dr. Harville and Dr. Helen's approach to dialogue could heal and strengthen the relationships in your life. Enjoy. Dr. Helen and Dr. Harville, I am so excited to get to spend some time with both of you. Thank you for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for having us. We're honored to be here.
The first thing you both need to know is that you have been part of my world since I was about 14 years old.
Oh, my goodness. 14, yeah. You were reading early or something.
I was reading early.
So would you tell us more about that?
Yes. My mom is a huge self-help book person.
Oh.
And so she had your book back in the day, Getting the Love You Want. And so I saw that on her nightstand and in our home. And then when I headed off to college and fell in love with my now husband, Todd, I read your book in college. And then when I became a couples therapist and a professor at Northwestern, I taught Imago therapy to the trainees at Northwestern who are becoming marriage and family therapists. So you just have been in my heart forever.
May I share something here at the beginning that is unexpected, but it is about family learning to dialogue?
Please.
May I tell you about that? Well, when I met Harville, I was going to pick the next guy I married because we divorced. My first husband, I divorced. And I was going to pick, and Harville was lecturing about romantic attraction, stage 1. The minister says, you are now married, happy ever after. Mm-hmm. Well, not really, he said. Romantic attraction is followed up by stage 2. And if you learn a few things in stage 2, everyone can get to stage 3, like how to dialogue. And that stage 3 is real love. So then we got married and we had 2 more and we had 6 kids. And our kids, as they got older, teenagers and they would argue with each other and they would be rude to me. Mom, you're letting so-and-so do so-and-so. Well, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't do that. And then we would have a Thanksgiving holiday, Christmas holiday, Easter holiday. That's our faith background. A lot of the kids, as they were older, didn't even want to come. And so, a long story short, Harville and I decided that we could put together funds that we could give to the kids, but tell them, by the way, we would love to give you some money, but until you use the dialogue skills, you won't get a penny from us ever for the rest of your life. And so at that time, we had a daughter who had children, and she said, Mom, thank you. Thank you. This is just life-changing. And the dialogue skills are life-changing. And parents should use them and teach their kids to use them.
Yeah.
Just like you when you were 13.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thanks for telling us that story. That's very touching. You don't often hear that.
Yeah.
I was 14. I met you. That's lovely. Lovely.
I'm so grateful for the two of you, for your presence in this field, the work that you've been doing for decades, and the way in which, you've been at this for decades and decades and have had such a huge influence. So thank you for being the thought leaders and the generous, loving caregivers of the world that you have been. So I would love to ask you the question that all of the Reimagining Love guests get asked. Are you ready for the question?
We are ready for the question.
Okay.
We may not have an answer, but we are here.
Well, that's right. That's right. How are you reimagining love in one of your important relationships these days? What are you working on in your relationships? One of your relationships these days?
So came from a family that money was made in the family-owned business, and then money came to me. And another woman who was a woman philanthropist called me one day and said, Helen, I've heard you and Harville say the dialogue skills are so easy, they should be taught in school. And I read a book recently on Mother Teresa, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize. Why would Nobel Peace Prize be won by a Mother Teresa? And she read the book and she said, Mother Teresa put funding in low-income countries. And Southern California, where I live, has plenty of money. Would you and Harville do a lecture to young people in Liberia? A lot of people don't know that's the 51st state of the United States. It's where the slaves were purchased when the New World was discovered. And I want to put my money in a low-income country. And she asked if we would do our dialogue lecture. There's a way to talk. It's called monologue. And there's another way to talk that builds healthy relationships. And do a dialogue for the sentence stems. Mm-hmm. Well, we did that, and it's now begun to spread around the whole continent. And the president heard about it. And the recent president is now, he said, if I'm elected, everyone in the country will use dialogue. He won, and Deborah's now training his presidential cabinet to use dialogue. Oh, it's not happening in Washington, D.C., and then there's two other places around the world that it's being used.
Oh, but thanks, Helen, for that answer. I would not have done that. But that's lovely, because what you're saying, which is true, or could have said it, but it just didn't occur to me, because love is so interpersonal that I'd often thought about that as you and me, or me and a child or somebody. But what you're saying is that the processes that we use with personal, intimate relationships to help people and deal with their love there has now been exported all around the world. That the same processes that are operative in intimate relationships can be operative in social relationships and in cultures. And that's what you're talking about.
Children.
Is that instead of it being limited to the intimate partnership, that we've spread the dialogue, which is to us the mechanism of love to the whole world. Very good for you. That's a very good answer.
And in other ways, it's a mechanism for love, but it's a mechanism for safe, connected relationships.
Yeah. We had a think tank for about 4 years, from 2010 to 2014, with the question, how can we take our relational focus, helping couples with love, somehow transmute that into a process that we could take to the culture, so that that's not limited. And the long and short of that was, about 4 years into that, it was clear that the technology that we had in Imago Relationship Therapy was the most easily transportable. The others had wonderful therapeutic modalities, but they were not easily transportable into the mass market. And dialogue was, because you can teach anybody to talk without criticizing, and listen without judgment, and connect beyond difference, which is our definition.
Yeah, mirroring someone back. What I just heard you say, I think.
Yeah.
Is this what I heard you say? Da, 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 da. Did I get it?
Yeah.
And is there more?
Right.
It's not a science, it's little sentence stems.
Yeah. I think I'll talk about mine. When I was in graduate school, I had a theology professor who was then called a public theologian, Paul Tillich, and he was my mentor and my advisor. And then he died on me, so I had to get somebody else. But he had a sentence that at the time I did not have the depth nor wisdom to comprehend. But his sentence was, listening is the first act of love. And if you meditate on that a little bit, what you get is the profound awareness that listening opens you up to the other person, who they really are, so that love is directed at that person rather than at your fantasy of that person or who you wish that person were. That love is listening so that other person penetrates your consciousness. The listening itself is the act of love because it gives them visibility, gives them reality, gives them the value that Martin Buber said everybody is intrinsic in everybody.
Here at Reimagining Love, we know that loving relationships are key for our health. Well, so is what we eat. And as someone who's been doing CrossFit and lifting heavy for well over a decade, I for sure know the importance of getting enough protein in your diet. So if you are struggling to get enough protein in your diet, I want to tell you about Kion Aminos. While you still for sure need whole food protein, Kion Aminos have all the essential amino acids, or EEAs, that you need to build muscle, healthy hair, skin, and nails. EEAs are what's inside protein, and Kion Aminos have more EEAs, are absorbed and utilized easier, and are better at building muscle than protein. What I think I love most about Kion is the personal story of CEO Angelo Keeley. He survived some pretty traumatic accidents when he was younger, accidents that sent him on a mission to create happy and healthy teams of humans. And that led him to Kion. And you can try Kion Aminos risk-free for 60 days with a money-back guarantee. Use my link to save 20% at getkion.com/OSLP. The discount code is OSLP. So your newest book is called How to Talk with Anyone About Anything. It's very beautiful and it feels really good in the hands. It's a really solid book. It is exactly what both of you have captured. It is, your initial passion was working with couples, and what you have learned is that these are really core central relationship skills that can be taken from the micro and the intimate to the macro and the cultural. I love that your work is so top down. It is what you just were talking about in terms of listening. You write in the book that listening actually has the power to change our brains. For the one who is doing the listening, what changes inside of me when you were speaking, Harville, to being listened to changes the person who's being listened to. But I think you're also saying that when I practice present listening, I change. Why is that?
Yeah.
Well, Harville did almost all of the sentence stems and had the idea of monologue isn't the answer. And people didn't even know they were using monologue. Dialogue is a different way to
Including me
talk.
for a long time.
But he did all of that. Now, what I have loved doing since I was very young is studying. I have a degree in psychology and I love studying brain science. And Dan Siegel was one of my favorite people to read. When people monologue, especially if they're telling someone their opinion about something and the other person has another opinion and you go, that's wrong. This is right. You're wrong. And I'm right. It could be which political party are you voting for, anything. If people monologue, there is more sort of anxiety, anxiousness. If people have all day monologued, they go to bed and cortisol and adrenaline and neurochemicals have gotten released during the day, or maybe they're just exhausted and they go to sleep. And many times people who use monologue only don't sleep very well and they don't get a good night's sleep. Now, if you use dialogue, you move from the lower part of the brain to the neocortex, new part of the brain. There's the left brain hemisphere, the right brain hemisphere, but you have to choose to go to the neocortex. Automatically, the lower brain keeps you alive. When you're hungry, it tells you get something to eat. And when you are tired, it says go to sleep. You need 8 hours at least. And after 8 hours, it goes, okay, you can wake up. The alarm clock goes off and you get, oh, good, I got a good night's sleep. So it responds automatically. To use the dialogue sentence stems, you have to choose. Left brain hemisphere, logic, sentence stem, da da da. Whoever built this computer is very good at left brain. And we get to talk to you because someone uses their neocortex and created this ability to talk at a distance and create an iPhone. And then the right brain is also a very good part of the brain, musicians, all sorts of people like that. And Dan Siegel says between the two is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, where you move beyond predication. And that's when you say, Harville, did I get that? And is there more about that? And asking questions is the healthiest. And the dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin flows through your body. And when it's time to go to sleep, Mayo Clinic has analyzed it, our dialogue sentence stems, and they say that people who use the dialogue sentence stems live longer, don't get sick as much, and have a healthier immune system for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So it only helps all of us who are aging. I mean, you go to sleep, just know I use dialogue all day. I have healthy relationships and I'm healthier.
Yeah, right. And now I can rest comfortably. You write in the book, and this is something I've been teaching college students, all of these relationship skills for 25 years. I have an undergraduate relationship course that I've been doing for years and years and years. And when I teach these dialogue skills, my students say the same thing to me that you two have heard thousands of times, which is, this is not how people talk, saying, I want to make sure I heard you right. And am I getting everything you said? And that complaint, this is not how people talk, proves the point, right? That we tend to, in our culture, do much more monologue, talking at each other or talking past each other. So can you give us a little more of a flavor around why is it so powerful so the sentence stems about, am I getting this right? Is there anything more? That's the mirroring. Right. So what is it that is so powerful about being mirrored?
Well, I love that question. And I want to do an off ramp on what Helen said about the brain, is that just to underline something, is that often when you talk about, it benefits you if you love and you get something out of it, it's often a kind of an emotional promise or and the psychological, or what Helen's talking about is that since love involves an intention, that the act of intending does a neurophysiological thing to your brain. It grows new neurons. And if you do it repetitively over time, it grows a new neuronal path so that your brain neurophysiologically actually changes when you practice love, because the act of intention is an exercise, and exercise changes whatever muscle that is doing that. And the phrase is, so if I got it, your day was X, Y, and Z, and also, am I getting how your day was? And is there more about that? So that's the technology and the interaction. The psychological power in that is that we operate out of this thesis that everyone, and it's not a leftover thing, but it's our nature, needs one thing: to be seen and heard and valued. And that if we are seen and heard and valued, then we have the nutrients in that vitalizes our minds and our emotions and even our bodies. So when you're talking with me, if I do what most people don't do, which is shift the topic to them, or have a judgment about what you just said, or replace it with my own experience, or what we call parallel monologues, if I instead shift and do the lateral instead of the vertical, I do the lateral and I do a dialogue. What you experience as you come into my view as you, not judged, evaluated, advised, or helped by me. You come into my view as your intrinsic self, as your intrinsic value. And what you need, what I need, and it never goes away. It's not a childhood need. It's a human need that never goes away, is the need to know that you are valuable, that you are seen, and that you're heard. When children are seen, heard, and valued, we know from experience and from other people that we know who had their experience, children thrive and adolescents don't act out. They don't go through the adolescent rebellion cycle. That is not indigenous to adolescence. That's indigenous to parental failure to keep the adolescent visible while the adolescent is changing the neurophysiology and psychology that goes along with becoming an adolescent. They begin to act different. And if the parent says you can't act different, you have to act the way you were, or the way I want you to be, then that person goes blank. I mean, they experience invisibility. And so they have to be seen. So they do act out then in order to be seen. But now they're seen in a judgmental way, often in a punitive way. So everything goes bad. We could just say this to the whole world and to every parent, but every child. Hey, all you have to do for your child to thrive, for your child to go through all the developmental stages without a hitch, including adolescence, is mirror them. Say, hey, so that's what's happening. You don't want to go to bed now. Am I getting that? Is there more about not wanting to go to bed? And the baby will go to bed. I've seen this happen in our own kids. I remember one time with Hunter, our youngest son, was so rebellious about going to bed one night. And so I mirrored him and finally he said, yeah, I don't want to go to bed. And he crawled into bed and pulled up the cover and went to sleep. It was like, once I
The power struggle is over.
then I can go to sleep. And it's that simple. What blows my mind is it's that simple. But if you don't mirror that effect, the universal human need doesn't happen. It is the mirroring back with accuracy and without judgment and without advice and without any attachments. Just leave it alone. Now the person is, and they're okay. And they'll interact with you okay at that point because they don't have an agenda to be seen and heard because they've just got what they need to be.
So that is, all of this is about the dialogue skills. But what the two of you found along the way was that you wanted to add another practice to it. And this practice is called zero negativity. And the case that you made is that a thriving relationship requires emotional safety, and emotional safety and negativity are incompatible. And so that was why you've added this practice that is difficult and beautiful of zero negativity. Can you tell us more about that?
Zero negativity does not mean you can't bring your problems to your partner or anybody, whoever you're struggling with, you can do that. But instead of telling them, hey, Harville, I'm mad at you. Do you know how long it took to get on the Zoom call?
No.
Don't you know how to use the computer?
No.
You convert a frustration into a request.
Mm-hmm.
Harville, getting on the computer, it took a while.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time to meet with you and see, maybe is there something we should have done differently? Could we just meet at another time?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what we call converting a frustration into a request, that you make an appointment to talk to another person when that person has time, because it could be a short meeting or it could be a long one, and to make the request. And the request is using the dialogue process with each other. What I would like you to have done is this. And maybe the other person goes, well, I don't think I could do exactly that. What about this? And then, well, maybe not exactly that. What about this? And then eventually they go, oh, that's it. We found the answer.
And sometimes there isn't even an it that needs to change. The dialogue is just, can you witness my frustration and my anxiety? Sure, I witness that. That makes sense. I can put myself in your shoes, right? There sometimes isn't even a thing that needs to change, but rather a dialogue in which both people can feel witnessed in whatever their experience was.
Mhm.
As different, having a different
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but also they can birth a new idea. Sometimes they
Yeah.
can birth a new idea together
Yeah.
that both of them like.
That is so much a thesis of your book, is that the thing that scares us most is difference. The thing that is inevitable is difference. And when we can learn to really dialogue across difference, then there's so much creative potential. I love the positivity in that message, that when we can just tolerate the differences between ourselves and really like invite, every difference is an opportunity for growth, for fresh perspective, and to your point, Helen, to a potential solution that you could not possibly have thought of on your own, a new way that you could not possibly have come up with on your own.
Yeah, and that's a gift that is missed by nearly everyone who wants to take on things that have to be the way I see them,
Mhm.
and that you just don't have a good idea. So let's take mine. That the judgment, and I think the other thing I'd like to say about zero negativity is that we have done a lot of research on negativity. In fact, you've done it for years. We didn't codify zero negativity. We did it before this book, but didn't do it I don't think it's in Getting a Love You Want. We hadn't codified it at that point. But we did codify it because I could say this dogmatically. All research on negativity can find not a single value of negativity for human beings. In fact, any negativity is a disvalue. And so the question is, how come we are so sensitive as human beings? And here's why. We are sensitive because, and this is another thing that most of us don't know, and I don't even like the fact that this is, I think, true of us, of our nature, is that the backdrop that we all live in is anxiety about being. Is it possible that we live with some unspoken, not in front of our brains, but in the back of our brains, at any moment I could not be? And it could be because a tornado will come. It could be because you yell at me. But my brain is going to go through the same process, whether it's something I can't control, like a tornado, or you. My brain frames the threat as ultimate and absolute, that it's possible in this transaction that I could not only die, but disappear from the universe. And that's what anxiety is. That's what Freud called anxiety, is what Paul Tillich calls it. And I studied anxiety starting in graduate school, and I began to work on my own definition. And after a while, I came back to them because it made so much sense that anxiety is not about a dog running down a path or seeing a snake. That's fear. I fear this object. But behind the fear of that object is the possibility this object, the snake, could bite me, and then I would get sick and die. And then what? Well, disappear from the universe. In other words, Paul Tillich, the philosopher, put it, non-being would be the consequence of this. So when partners fight, or say in a company where the boss and his or her verticality controlling that go negative with, that report didn't get in on time. Can I count on you? Or do you think we can get this done? And do all of that. There's an inherent threat in that you can lose your job. You lose your job, you can't eat. If you can't eat, you'll die, and then you'll disappear. So then we go into defenses, and we'll then chow down and try to get it done, or we'll say, I'm out of here, to hell with this job, or we'll do something about that. We either comply or rebel against that. But negativity is destructive, and it just needs to be said that behind all negativity is a wish. I wish for something, but I don't ask for it. I complain about what I don't have instead of asking for what I want. That simple twist is to go into desire instead of into complaint. Then Helen's brain doesn't go into defense. It goes into curiosity. Oh, so how can we get that done? Instead of, why in the hell do you want that? Or you'll never get that. Or you're always complaining about that, which is totally toxic for my emotions. And as Helen talking earlier, for my brain, because the neurochemicals of my brain, cortisol And adrenaline is going to impact my immune system. I'm going to not feel good. And eventually my immune system will not defend me and I will have more illnesses and die. I think the research on that is that a chronic negative environment will take 13 years off of your life.
Here at Reimagining Love, we know that loving relationships are key for our health. Well, so is what we eat. And as someone who's been doing CrossFit and lifting heavy for well over a decade, I for sure know the importance of getting enough protein in your diet. So if you are struggling to get enough protein in your diet, I want to tell you about Kion Aminos. While you still for sure need whole food protein, Kion Aminos have all the essential amino acids, or EEAs, that you need to build muscle, healthy hair, skin, and nails. EEAs are what's inside protein. And Kion Aminos have more EEAs, are absorbed and utilized easier, and are better at building muscle than protein. What I think I love most about Kion is the personal story of CEO Angelo Keeley. He survived some pretty traumatic accidents when he was younger, accidents that sent him on a mission to create happy and healthy teams of humans. And that led him to Kion. And you can try Kion Aminos risk-free for 60 days with a money-back guarantee. Use my link to save 20% at getkion.com/OSLP. The discount code is OSLP. You are not asking people to bite their tongues or stuff their feelings or paint a fake smile on their faces. You are asking people to take responsibility for
your wish.
Yes.
Yeah. Or what you want. Take responsibility for what you want, because you're not going to get it if you go after it negatively. Just not possible. Mm-hmm. Even if you got something that you complained about not having, the person will give it out of some compliance rather than out of grace and generosity. So it's not a real gift. It's a kowtow. So that request for what you want, turn the frustration into a wish, is probably, I would think, one of the most revolutionary phrases that we've ever come up with.
Yeah, into a request.
Turn the wish into a request. And then turn that into a behavior. So what would it look like if I did not just thought that, but did that? Now we can trot because we've got what you want.
So once upon a time, Harville and I had worked and worked and worked, and it was time to stop and take a vacation. What Harville wanted was to get tickets to this country and see that part of the world, and then fly to another country and see that part of the world and fly da-da-da. And I went, oh, Harville, there are movies about those parts of the world. Mm-hmm. We got our kids, we got this, we got other things. Let's just get on our sofa and watch moviings about these different parts of the world. Yeah. And because I was tired, I didn't want to keep going on a plane, getting to a building and getting a tour guide and da-da-da. So eventually we discussed and talked about it, and we decided to purchase a motorhome where Harville could drive to Alaska, could drive. Did you know, not only did we go to the Grand Canyon, but in Mexico, there's the Copper Canyon. Mm-hmm. And at the bottom of Copper Canyon, they're Native American tribes. Mm-hmm. Okay, we wake in the morning, we start driving, and you can pull over, and there's a place we can have lunch. And then in the back is a place you can sleep in a motorhome. And we had breakfast, and he moved out of the motorhome and went down the highway to get that far for that day. Mm-hmm. I went to the bedroom and watched 2 videos about the different parts of the world. Yeah. Well, he didn't need me beside him while driving.
No.
So I'm the wanderer and she's the nester.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Bringing together in a motorhome. And we did that for 22 years. We went to a lot of places without the conflict of Are we going to go anywhere? I want to go somewhere. And she didn't want to go anywhere.
No, she wants to tuck in bed and watch a movie. Yeah, beautiful. That's beautiful. I would love to hear your thoughts. We can do this briefly on this listener question. Okay, so Sarah is in Egypt. She wrote to us from Egypt and she listens to the show. And here's her question. My husband of 6 months got an amazing job offer overseas, and I'm scared of moving away and leaving my whole family and life behind. I'm also scared our relationship might be affected by the fact that I will, in the first period, have no job or friends. How do I communicate this with him in a way that is supportive and rational, but also conveys my vulnerability and my fears? Putting in mind that we are still figuring each other out in marriage and are still struggling with finding a way to communicate in hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to say to Sarah from Egypt?
Okay, I'll throw out.
You want to throw it? Okay.
So one thing is, if there were some sentences he could say to her in the morning, sentences of appreciation or anything like that, definitely before going to bed. But who knows, maybe at a lunch, if they're together ever at lunch, just say a few words of appreciation, and on her own to wake up and think, life is a mystery, and what mystery is going to happen to me in my life today that could be a positive one that I could make into something positive.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is the attitude that she can take, an attitude of awareness of what her blessing is, and looking at something positive. And I think we could also push her beyond that and say that you really do need to talk with each other about this. Otherwise, it will make your interaction probably toxic, because you're talking about fear. Fear is never, ever close making either. Fear is not intimacy. It's hard to be intimate and afraid at the same time. And this is sort of hard to say to somebody who's never heard about the dialogue process. But you can say something really simple, like, when you should share your feelings with your partner, and you should ask, is it okay to do so? I have some feelings and fears that I'm having that I would like to share with you. And we call that appointment making. In fact, when you get in our world, we will say to you, never talk to your partner without asking permission. And people would go, what? I have to ask my partner permission to talk? And we say, well, we can call it an appointment, but then we put it as, if you just walk up and start talking to your partner, you are crossing their boundaries. They're running their own movie. And you go in and say, can I put my movie on you? Or you just start running your movie on their screen. And that's going to cause a problem in itself. So you always ask, can I cross your line? Can I come through your door? Can I show my movie on your screen? In other words, can I talk? Is now a good time?
Yeah.
And if they say it's not a good time, then you say, well, okay, well, let's make a time when it would be good for you.
Yeah.
You must always. So the appointment needs to be really thought about. In fact, in our workshops, it's the first thing we teach couples is, now that you've gotten here and we're teaching you dialogue, the first thing you have to learn is, from now on, you never initiate a conversation with your partner without permission. One of the best decisions you'll ever make is to just start with that.
Yeah, the permission is, can I talk to you about so-and-so at a time you can listen? And so that's what making the appointment is. Yeah. Or can I have an appointment with you to talk about so-and-so? Yeah. And the other person goes, if it's this conversation, it would take 10 minutes. But if she's asking about this, it could be 30 minutes, and say, well, how long do you want? How long do you want?
Yeah, and so you put a time limit. Could I have this appointment for 10 or 20 or 30 minutes? Because most of us, especially introverts like me, think, oh, you're going to need the next 2 hours. But if you just say 10 minutes, and oh no, longer is worse.
Right. And longer is not better. I have lots of couples where I'm like, you got to tighten up these conversations. Longer is worse. Yeah, I agree. I really agree that for her to act as if she can go through this move without raising her concerns really does set them up for some resentment, or her feeling like, kind of a martyr. And so I love the idea of, especially early in their marriage, just viewing this, to go back to Helen's mindset point, viewing this, her feelings are just giving the couple a practice ground, a chance to just have dialogue. She's not pointing her finger at him and saying, you're doing this to me, making me move. No, she's not a victim. She's just saying, I want us to really be side by side, looking together at the impact of this choice that we as a couple are making.
And anyway, hears this and gets our advice. The second thing she can do, most people don't do, they want to go first, would be to say, and I have some concerns about our situation right now, and I'm sure you do too. And I would love for you to talk to me about them. And then when he does, that she mirrors him back and says, so you got these. And then I would like to talk about my concerns. And she models for him listening and then mirroring. So you feel concerned about this, you feel concerned about that, and so forth and so forth. Did I get it all? And then she says, okay, now would you be willing to let me talk and you tell me back what you heard me say? And then the other thing is to always talk from the I. I'm the one with these concerns. The concerns are not caused by you. I'm the one with these concerns, and I'm one. And so if they can just get through those two things, an appointment and a mutual mirroring, they'll be way down the road. And if they'll remember to do that every time, that when they have a concern, ask for an appointment, say, could I share something? And you tell me back like you did yesterday or the other day, tell me back what you heard me say, holding each other in that and say, don't do anything about it. Just hold each other in the hearing and in the listening. And I think most people can get those two things and play with. They'll be imperfect, but anything is better than the alternative, which is that you just dump your feelings on your partner.
And the other thing is, Dan Siegel says, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, it is, quote, moving beyond predication, is how he
moving
writes
beyond
it,
judgment,
which is where you predicate. This is it. This is it. When you wonder, Dan Siegel says, when you move beyond predication is speaking anything, moving beyond predication and just wondering about what her life will be like with this man in this other country.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I have to be respectful of your time. I want to sit here for 3 more hours, but I'm going to wrap us up because the two of you have lots of more people to dialogue with today. I know, but I'm so grateful that you spent this time here with me on Reimagining Love. Can you, obviously, what we're going to do in the show notes is share links to your brand new book, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything. What else? What's another great way of people getting to know you and being near you in all your work, as if anybody listening is going to not know you? But just in case, the 3 people who are hearing you for the first time, where can they go?
Well, the best place to go is harvillandhelen.com, which is our website, because there's where our schedule is, where our books are, where everything is about us personally. And if people are interested in the project behind the book, How to Talk with Anybody About Anything, go to another website called safeconversations.com, and they will see this project we have of spreading the dialogue process to the world. Anybody can become involved in that project, learn the dialogue, learn how to teach the dialogue, and become a part of distributing it. And we only have our target audience is 2.4 billion people in the next 30 years. So, if you want to get on board, there's plenty for you to do. And if a person is not interested in joining the movement, there's a 4-hour thing. It's a 4-hour video that you can look at for your own personal growing into using the dialogue process in your own life. And you don't want to become an evangelist to the world. You just want to know how to do this better. That would be something you can do, because we do think that dialogue is a new way to talk that has just shown up in the past 100 years in human consciousness. And that monologue, which is the old way to talk, we think it's on its way out and it's being replaced by this new way of interacting with other human beings.
That's right.
So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you both.
We are delighted to be on with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Dr. Helen and Dr. Harville for sharing their wonderful practices and wisdom. They have so impacted my life and my work, and I know they'll do the same for you, my dear listener. If this conversation has encouraged you to reread or to seek out the iconic book, Getting the Love You Want, or the newest release, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, then we are one step closer to Helen and Harville's incredible goal of spreading healthy, validating dialogue across the world. Thank you also to our listener, Sarah, for her question. I hope you feel better equipped to navigate that important conversation. If you're ready to start having more connected dialogue, you can find out more about Dr. Hunt and Dr. Hendrix projects and books in the show notes. Until next time, be well. Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening and see you next week here on Reimagining Love. Here at Reimagining Love, we know that loving relationships are key for our health. Well, so is what we eat. And as someone who's been doing CrossFit and lifting heavy for well over a decade, I for sure know the importance of getting enough protein in your diet. So if you are struggling to get enough protein in your diet, I want to tell you about Kion Aminos. While you still for sure need whole food protein, Kion Aminos have all the essential amino acids, or EEAs, that you need to build muscle, healthy hair, skin, and nails. EEAs are what's inside protein, and Kion aminos have more EEAs, are absorbed and utilized easier, and are better at building muscle than protein. What I think I love most about Kion is the personal story of CEO Angelo Keeley. He survived some pretty traumatic accidents when he was younger, accidents that sent him on a mission to create happy and healthy teams of humans. And that led him to Kion. And you can try Kion Aminos risk-free for 60 days with a money-back guarantee. Use my link to save 20% at getkion.com/OSLP. The discount code is OSLP.